Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayapataka Gadadhara Sivasadi
The following is a class given by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaja on June 10th, 1981 in St. Louis. The class begins with a reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Text 20.
The effulgent Mahatattva, which contains all the universes within itself, which is the root of all cosmic manifestations and which is not destroyed at the time of annihilation, swallows the darkness that covered the effulgence at the time of dissolution. Translation: since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing, all blissful and full of knowledge, His different energies are also ever existing in the dormant stage. Thus, when the Mahatattva was created, it manifested the material ego and swallowed up the darkness which covered the cosmic manifestation at the time of dissolution. This idea can be further explained. A person at night remains inactive, covered by the darkness of night. But when he is awakened in the morning, the covering of night or the forgetfulness of the sleeping state disappears. Similarly, when the Mahatattva appears after the night of dissolution, the effulgence is manifested to exhibit the variegatedness of this material world. Thus, in the purport, Bhaktivedanta purport of text 20, chapter 26, canto 3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of fundamental principles of material nature. So here it says how the Mahatattva, either dormant or manifested, is always existing. The effulgent Mahatattva is what the Buddhists realize when they dismantle their complete body, mind, ego, and then they go into the Mahatattva. But they never realize the self. So they don't go beyond the Viroja to the Brahmajyoti. That's why they think that everything's over. Because they didn't realize the self and they dismantled everything else. Then they think, finished. Bliss. Actually, for the Vaishnavas, either this type of nirvana that they consider the materialistic nirvana, or even the Brahma stage of realizing the Brahma Jyoti, is completely undesirable. You see, of course, every living entity is eternal and has got pure spiritual knowledge, bliss, eternally as their nature. But when we're in the material world, we forget our natural blissful state. Because by the false ego we identify with this body. We identify with this body, mind, intelligence, and thus we are forced to suffer and joy through the senses and through the mind. And the process of yoga are to transcend this illusory identification and come to our original state of consciousness. Now, only Krishna consciousness and the process of bhakti yoga takes one up to the full potential of the living entity. Other processes of self-realization, yoga, Buddhism, they take one different levels, but never up to the complete potential of the living entity. Either up to the Mahatattva, or up to the Brahmajyoti, or even realizing Paramatma, the super soul, in a mystic yoga process. But to actually go to the spiritual planets of Krishna and to regain one's original spiritual form, one Siddhupalabdhi, and one Siddha Deho, the Satchidananda form of eternity, knowledge and bliss, this It's only possible by the practice of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga. and amongst all the different types of Bhakti Yoga or different paramparas, actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has combined all of them. He has taken the essence from the 4 different sampradayas. You know that there's Shiva Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, and Lord Brahma Sampradaya. Of course, we are falling in the Lord Brahma, technically speaking. But to differentiate Lord Chaitanya, followers call this the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, when he appeared in the Brahma Sampradaya, who was the first created being of the universe and a pure devotee, the father of Lord Shiva, etc., and the father of the Kumaras. So he, however, didn't simply conform strictly, but what Lord Chaitanya did was not only did he take the essence of the Brahma Sampradaya, but he took the essential factors from the other 3 sampradayas as well. He took 2 from Brahma, 2 from Shivas, Rudras, 2 from Lakshmis, and 2 from Kumaras. And thus it's predicted in the Padma Purana that the 4 bona fide Vaishnava sampradayas, which are mentioned as Sri, Rudra, Brahma, Kumar, they'll all be combined in the Kali Yuga. You see. And this is due to the special mercy of Lord Chaitanya, that all the Krishna conscious Bhakti movements, worshipping the bona fide movements, worshipping the Supreme Personality of God, have been combined in the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as we preach in India, we see more and more that the different sampradayas, they're coming to join Lord Chaitanya movement, seeing that this actually contains the essence of all, and this is the perfect unity to give shelter to the whole world in the highest principle of pure devotional service, which is emulated or which is glorified by all of the different Vaishnava acharyas and great spiritual masters. So, in this way, different paths of self-realization are aiming at different goals. You see, but the devotee is very, very disgusted, afraid of having anything to do with some impersonal realization. You see, one time Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his meditation, he was walking through Navadvip Dham, and when he got to Rudradvip there, he saw a beautiful woman who was wearing white cloth, who was crying. And her hair was a little bit disheveled, and she looked distraught, and she started heading towards Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and she was saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or whatever. She was saying, oh, I'm so unfortunate. Oh, I'm so unfortunate. Lord Chaitanya has come and delivered all the fallen souls, but what about me? You see, what about me? Everyone has left me. Even the great sages. And she named some great sages, I think. Not Maitreya, Markandeya and others. They've all left me. Markandeya, everyone, they've all left me. And now I'm all alone. Won't Lord Chaitanya have mercy on me? And Bhakti, who is this? Who is this person? And she said, then she said, I am Suja Mukti. That's the Mukti of merging in the light. Everyone has left me now. Lord Chaitanya has completely cleared me out. Everyone now is going for pure bhakti. Will he not have mercy on me? As soon as Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard the word Suja Mukti, he got scared and ran. Didn't want to have anything to do with merging. You see. She has to take it up directly with the Lord. We can't get involved. For the devotees, we don't want to take any chances. You see, the devotees don't want anything to do with merging. In fact, Sanatana Goswami was also describing how one devotee who had eternal relationship with Krishna as a cowherd boy, when on the way going back to Godhead, was crossing through the different levels of existence, going through Satyaloka and so on, and going to Shiva Loka. So as he was going towards the Vaikuntha Loka, through the Brahmajyoti, he was just going a little bit too slow. And so all of a sudden he started to merge. Started to lose his identity. Started to just like, and he was almost halfway. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna! Went up to the Vaikuntha Loka. So, to be very careful that we're very fixed in the personal conception of life. You can just understand that how when we're passing through, if we see anything we like, we're going through the different heavenly, oh, look at this Siddha Loka, wow. Look at how they're flying around and producing things with mystic power. And they have all these mystic powers. This is nice. Before we know it, we'll be there. Remember in the Bhagavatam how it describes Prithu Maharaj. When Prithu Maharaj got on his airplane and when he was followed by his wife, the denizens of the heavenly planets, they saw them go and go and go right by them and go completely up and up, out of sight. They were heading straight back to the spiritual planets. They weren't going and seeing the different material planets. You go past Siddhalok, then you got Indralok. There, he's got so many of these dancing Urvasis, dancing Apsaras, heavenly society girls. Everyone is enjoying strolling around the parks. Wonderful arrangement for sense gratification. There in the heavenly planets, with the Christians and Muslims, they concentrate on this heavenly delights. So they don't seem to have a clear conception of a spiritual world, but what their idea is heavenly planets to enjoy wonderful material life. And that you get in this heavenly planets. You go up there, live off your material pious activity, and then just like people pay to go on a vacation and they live it up and they come back, then they have to work again. $499 TWA, 3 days, 4 nights, European tour, They go there, live it up for 4 days and come back and start working again. You're working here so many births and finally you accumulate some pious activity, go up to the heavenly planets, live it up for a little while. Abrahmana puvana loke. Abrahmana bhuvana loke punar vatirna arjuna. That even you go to the Brahma lok, again you have to come down. This is the thing. So when you're going back to Godhead, naturally a person can be passing all these places. He say, oh, here's a very nice garden, so many nice women, so many handsome men. Oh, let us this looks like a pretty nice place. Then you won't go further. You have to be fixed. Akaha kuru nandana. You say, fixed on going back to home, fixed on serving Krishna, fixed on just serving Krishna. That service to Krishna, that desire to serve the Lord, that will take you to His association. Either in another universe in the material world, or otherwise directly back where Lord Krishna is, or directly back to the spiritual world. But it will take you to Krishna's association. But as soon as you see anything in the material world which attracts, oh, let me just see this. You see, all these desires for seeing the material world, they should become completely eradicated. One should take out that desire for sense gratification altogether, for enjoying the material world, and simply by cultivation uncover the pure, real service attitude which is our spiritual birthright, which is what will carry us, just like a transcendental airplane, back to the spiritual, eternal service of the Lord. So to also become one with that spiritual energy, which are, all these energies are eternal. We see that these energies also are not destroyed. That desire of just being peaceful, Om Shanti, Shanti, Om Shanti. People, peace. You see, the Vaishnavas, they don't want that type of peace. They don't want that type of calmness. Mother Sachi, Jasoda Mai, they were not manifesting that type of calmness. Mother Yasoda was going here and there. Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Bring his butter. Bring his. We have to heat up the milk for him. Oh, where's Krishna now? She was always active. The Vaishnavas, they don't want this type of death-like calmness, this type of impersonal peace. They want that. They want to serve Krishna in ecstatic, loving devotion. You see, that is actually real. That is a higher level of peace. You see, peace, unity in diversity, rather than unity in oblivion. You see, devotees, they don't want that type of peace. You see, those who are fed up with the material world and just want to end it all, that type of like almost suicidal tendency, they're attracted. Oh yes. And they're afraid when they see, oh, there's a personal relationship with God and there's transcendental activities and everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains they get afraid. They get afraid to commit themselves to a personal relationship with God. Because they think, just like someone who's had so many lovers and everyone's always let them down, somehow everything is ended up on the bad side. They think, well, if I also give my love to Krishna, then he may also let me down. You see, but this is the difference: is Krishna is perfect. He's perfect, Siddheshwara. He is the master of all perfection, Yogeshwara. He's the supreme Lord of all mystic power. And in every respect, he's actually a perfect person. You see, Param Purusha. He doesn't let anyone down. He is a perfect, and you can see from his pastime, he was the perfect husband in Dwarka. He was the perfect son. He's the perfect friend of Arjuna, Uddhava, the perfect master of Daruka and others. You see, in every relationship, Krishna is perfect. You see. So in this way, we should not have any fears about our relationship with Krishna. We should give up all these types of fears. You see, about this personal relationship and spiritual life. They are far, far beyond even the impersonal realization. They are the highest level. They are filled with Satchidananda, eternal blissful knowledge. There's no material inebrities, and one never has to come back. Napnuvanti mahatmanas sangsiddhing paramam gataha. This is the all perfection is achieved from whence one never has to come back. So, this way, devotees should be determined to reach the lotus feet of Krishna and shouldn't have any fear, anger, or illusion about it. It should be fixed in that devotional service. So practically speaking, how we do that is that we maintain our personal relationship through the spiritual master. He has given us personal instructions. Sometimes people, they want to serve without a spiritual master. Why? Because the spiritual master is a person. And he is giving personal likes and dislikes and personal advices and instructions how to serve Krishna. Be careful, the garland's touching the floor here. Skimpy on the size of the cloth, I guess. Then, You see that because in this way we get a whole practice, we have a whole training where Krishna trains us through the spiritual master, because the spiritual master can tell us what Krishna wants. If we practice with the spiritual master following his instruction, in this way we'll also be able to follow the instructions of Krishna. Otherwise, in one's mind, everyone can concoct some idea about serving Krishna. Yes, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then, in this way, actually, there's no real surrender of one's false ego. There's no real service. One's just doing whatever one likes. And then calling that Krishna consciousness. You see, so one needs a spiritual master, both to know what Krishna wants and what one doesn't want, and also to be trained and to practice serving in a personal relationship. And therefore, the spiritual master is described as Sakshat Haritvaina, that he is directly the Swarup of Krishna, that he is Krishna's mercy expansion for training the disciples, for training the devotees. Today we're reading in that song how Sri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majaya Mon, that we simply want to absorb our mind in the lotus feet of the Guru, of the Vaishnavas. Sri. They are auspicious. They are filled with opulence because they contain the special quality of mercy and benediction of Krishna. You see, Narottam Das Thakur, he respected Srinivasacharya as the elder godbrother. You see that. Haha Prabhu Srinivasa, Doya Koro Srinivasa, Acharya Thakur. In the other song, he says like that. Actually, Srinivasacharya is a disciple of Hridayananda, who is a disciple of Gauridas Pandit. And Narottam Das Thakur is a disciple of Lokanath Goswami. No, excuse me, I'm very wrong. Srinivasacharya is a disciple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And it was Shyamananda Pandit, a disciple of Hridayananda Das. Excuse me. So, in that way, Srinivasacharya and Narottam, in the terms of their, both of them are the direct associates of Lord Chaitanya. Both Gopal Bhatta and Lokanath. They were directly ordered by Lord Chaitanya to go to Vrindavan. They both were directly serving Lord Chaitanya. You can say on that regard they're of the same level. But Narottam Das Thakur, he respected Srinivas as a senior Vaishnava. That was just their particular relation, as a senior godbrother. Why, I don't know all the details, but that we find in his songs and in the pastimes. He respected as a type of senior Vaishnava, although Srinivas would treat him as an equal, but Narottam would offer some extra respect, even more than he would offer to others. And actually Narottam became very, very close friends with Ramchandra, who was a disciple of Srinivas. In fact, Ramachandra Shangamangi. But Ramachandra was the most advanced preacher. And so he would be traveling and preaching, and sometimes he would go and be preaching with Narottam Das Thakur. But because although he was, in this way we have, in that type of second generation after Lord Chaitanya, we have a very similar situation as Prabhupada is created in ISKCON. Because there we have senior Vaishnavas, and all of them would go to Narahari, who was a direct associate of Lord Chaitanya. And he would give them instruction and guidance. Although he wasn't their guru in terms of initiation, but he was an associate of Lord Chaitanya, He was associate who did personal service, Narahari Chamara Tulaya, to the Lord. So in that way, they would go to him, and when he would bless them, and he would give them instruction on how they could advance in Krishna consciousness, and they would accept that. You see, as a even though their spiritual masters are also present in Vrindavana, but they didn't say, well, you're not my guru, but you're just an advanced Vaishnava. It wasn't that type of mood. If someone, a senior Vaishnava, gave an instruction which they could see was a transparent instruction, they accepted that. And they respected those advanced Vaishnavas. So in the same way, now we have in ISKCON this type of, we have the direct associates of Srila Prabhupada, and we have different God brothers, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and we have different spiritual masters and their different disciples. Some of them are more senior and some of them are more neophyte. We have all these different levels, and somehow doesn't have to be like a whole rigid type of formal situation where everyone pulls out the exact date of their initiation and holds on a seniority, which actually is what happened today practically in the Gaudiya, in the other Gaudiya Mat. They became a little bit too stuck on various sadhana principles. I went in one temple when I first was sent to India, and they had it worked out exact. You couldn't take prasad without going through. You had to tell the exact date you were initiated as a brahmachari. And of course, if you were a sannyasi, you just automatically went upstairs. You were elevated above this. But the brahmacharis and the grihasthas, they had it worked out exactly what day, and then accordingly, they had one after another you had set down. In other words, if you were 2 days before, then you were here, and then there. It was nice in one sense, but I mean, every day, if you actually accidentally sat two devotees above the other, that got pulled out and put back the other place, don't let it puffed up. So, what happened though, it became so much a thing. I mean, maybe it's nice in one sense to respect senior Vaishnavas. I'm not saying it's completely bad system, but it became so much so that even if there might be someone, a god brother who was 10 days younger or something like that, but who was actually very responsible, doing a lot of service, they couldn't recognize that person at all unless he took sannyas. And then among sannyasis they had the same system. So in that way, when it came to respecting Srila Prabhupada the first time he came, then some of his godbrothers, just because, he was a grihastha longer and he took sannyas later, they didn't want to offer that respect, even though he had done the greatest service of preaching all over the world. So their whole God brotherly love and Vaishnava relationship was obstructed by this type of artificial understanding. And so that's why a lot of people from the Gaudiya Mat, they've come over to ISKCON, or they want, because here was the natural. Although they have the same philosophy basically, but somehow the whole mood of preaching, the mood of book distribution, the mood of Vaishnava. Of course, we can learn a lot more about respecting Vaishnavas. Prabhupada, that was the one thing he felt that we should learn more and more, is to respect and to serve Vaishnavas. He was repeatedly saying that in ISKCON you have to, all the devotees should learn to love and respect, love and trust the other Vaishnavas, and to respect them. And not to offend any Vaishnava, to avoid offense. He was repeatedly advising. That was, although we become so familiar on the other side that then, respect anyone. You see, at least you get one extreme or the other, you see. So, of course, where I would say that Prabhupada had the greatest desire for us to actually reach the perfection. So we always have to be working at the proper combination of respect at the same time of actual love. Not that it just becomes a formality, but it's due to Si Guru Vaishnava Padde Majayamo. We actually, from our heart, we really feel appreciation for all the Vaishnavas. That's why one of my goals in this next Mayapur festival, of course maybe none of you will be able to see it, but one of my goals is to actually show appreciation to all of the Vaishnavas, and we're trying to initiate a special award ceremony, and joint darshans of all the sannyasis and gurus and GBCs, during the festival in the evenings. And then we'll have a special award ceremony, one night for all the Sankirtan awards of the year. They had this in New Mayapur at their festival. It was very wonderful, where what they would do is not just, not something like the Light Membership Trust Awards, where they just, call up and give you some useless abstract trophy. But where they glorify, first of all, for 5-6 minutes, the different devotee or the different temple involved, how they've struggled for Krishna consciousness, or how they've excelled in a particular service that they were doing. And then they wouldn't mention the name, until first they did glorify. Then they would, create a little suspense to it, and then they called the name of the person. And it was very wonderful, because as you're going on hour after hour, at first you thought that, well, what's going on here? But then after a while you start realizing it was so nice, because you just continuously were Bhakta program leader and Gurukul teachers and Sankirtan devotees and Bhakta leaders, so on and so forth. And they're glorifying it. Which ones had done a great sacrifice? Which ones had done some special service for Prabhupada and the movement? And this also helped to focus everybody. What is real Krishna consciousness? What is our goal? What are our activities? And this way it really put everything very much in focus. What things we should be aspiring for. What things we should be trying to excel in. By glorifying, even for a short time, the different devotees who in that particular zone, we witnessed it, they were glorifying, they were excelling. So in the same way, we'd like to try to introduce some of these things in the Mayapur festival. And one night would be the Sankirtan awards, and then other night things like different ministries and committee like BBT for publishing and things like that, and for different ministries like in public affairs, who's done some excellent service for public affairs, or for farming and for other things like that. And then in the future we also would like to give out Sanskrit titles. Prabhupada suggested this for devotees who have dedicated themselves to a particular service and who have reached a certain level of steadiness and a certain level of expertise, that they are an example that others could follow and learn from. Not that just you give some person a title that he becomes falsely proud or something, but it's a responsibility. Just like sannyas is a responsibility in one aspect, so this would be a responsibility, say, the cooks who have become excellent cooks. Then they get a certain title as a cook. And once they reach a certain level of excellence, and in the whole society there may be half a dozen or something or whatever, how many, depends how many qualify, of that level of cook. And then naturally people will go to them, and it'll be part of their responsibility as brahmanas to train other people how to reach that standard of excellence in cooking and puja and in our deity worship and in other factors. And so this, because Prabhupada, he didn't want that devotees would feel some dissatisfaction in doing different kinds of services, but rather we need expert cooks, expert pujaris, expert gurukul teachers. Not that after 5 years person says, well, I got to become a temple president, otherwise I'm not going to go back to Godhead or something. It's not like that. You see, every service is very and most important, and it requires that certain devotees should excel in different services so that others can be trained. Not that everybody has to do one service. Of course, naturally, already the focus is on Sankirtan and other services, but we also want, even the Sankirtan preachers, we need to see the beautiful deities when we come back, nicely decorated, to purify our mind and to help us to meditate on Krishna, so that when we go out there and preach, we have the purity to give us more and more force. So we're trying to arrange a program to Mayapur Festival that this may be encouraged, at least, we hope. We hope that Nitai Gaur and Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta will give us some mercy for being able to do that. But this basic idea of respecting Vaishnavas, of respecting the spiritual master, of serving Krishna. These are the most important things. In fact, serving Guru and Vaishnava and taking their association is most important for us in the conditional state. For anyone in the conditional stage, anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service, even we find that the four Kumaras, when they also came and met Prithu Maharaj, and Prithu asked them questions, they said that you have asked such a nice question that we feel benefited by this. Now we have a chance to become more purified by being able to answer such nice questions. So even for very advanced preachers, like the four Kumaras, who can be more advanced than they are, they're Sampradaya Acharyas, the beginner of Sampradaya, even they were glorifying the association just of a qualified Vaishnava devotee who could even ask good questions, because it gave them a chance to glorify the Lord and to explain pure bhakti, which purifies even the preachers. You see, we go on with our purification. Even one is pure, still one becomes more and more elevated in devotional service simply by serving. So in this way, the devotees are always anxious for association with other Vaishnavas, to give them the opportunity to advance more and more in the service of Krishna. So we can understand these things by studying the songs and the writings of our previous acharyas, and even by understanding their pastimes, how after Lord Chaitanya, these different acharyas, they would have their intimate relationships and how they cooperate with each other for preaching the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada is so kind that he has created an identical type of circumstance in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where everyone works together in a very cooperative spirit, and where although we follow the social etiquette and formalities as are necessary, at the same time that love, faith, and appreciation of others' service take predominance. This type of a very fluid, wonderful situation. And we can, of course, only perfect that more and more by following in the footsteps of our previous acharyas. Thus we can relish the association of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, through the association of the Vaishnavas, through the association of the spiritual master, through our service, through the classes of Bhagavatam, and through worshipping the deity and performing Sankirtan. We can continually relish these different associations, and thus time goes by very quickly. We gradually come into eternal time, where the passing of days or weeks no longer becomes the same. One is actually already on the transcendental platform, and very soon, even though we say, well, we have to wait so long, 60 years we have to live, but what 60 years goes by in just a short time for us, especially in Krishna consciousness, because there's never a dull moment, there's never a material moment, it's always in the transcendental time schedule, which makes every moment, every second very enjoyable, very transcendentally empowered to bring us closer and closer to Krishna. So the time goes very quickly. Before we know it, we'll be ready to go back to Krishna. We just have to make sure that we don't allow any gaps. Haitu kya pratihata, aprihata. There shouldn't be any gaps. No spaces. We should keep a continuous service going to our spiritual master without any separation. You see, in that way, Srila Prabhupada showed continuously his service to Bhakti Siddhanta. Of course, how can we analyze his service? Actually, we can understand if we can't even hold up a candle to his service. If we could just follow to some degree the intensity of the schedule that he would follow, the intensity of the preaching that he would do, you see, we would be assured success. Actually, Srila Prabhupada is also an acharya, a sampradaya acharya. He has established a sampradaya within a sampradaya, and he wants that we continue with his family tree, and that this will be the main branch of Lord Chaitanya's tree that can accommodate and unite and bring all the different branches of the Gaudiya Sampradaya together, and thus bring all the different branches of all these Sampradayas together. So that requires that now we have to completely absorb ourselves in pure devotional service so intensely, get rid of all the different type of weeds and distractions so perfectly that naturally we'll be drawing in all the sincere, diversant elements, and we will be getting the full mercy of Lord Chaitanya for actually delivering the whole world. It's Lord Chaitanya's prediction that the whole world will be delivered. It's just a question of who will get that mercy. Now Prabhupada has already done half the work. We can't rest on laurels that, well, Prabhupada did half the work, therefore we automatically should do the other half. That we have to earn it, like Prabhupada earned it. He endeavored, he took sacrifice, he went through various ordeals or various tests by Krishna, and he passed. He always chose to serve the order of his spiritual master over any other idea. And then Prabhupada said, as long as we are more attached to Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, as long as we're more attached to the order of the spiritual master, which are the representative of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, then Maya's idea will not hold any attraction for us. You see, this is the secret. We have to, step by step, simply refine our desires, to simply desire to do whatever will please Krishna, whatever will please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the spiritual master. Thus, we will be able to get that special mercy by Lord Chaitanya's benediction, to actually deliver the whole rest of the world, whatever is still left in Srila Prabhupada's mission. And that is, of course, for us, will be the greatest opportunity to be instruments in the hands of Krishna. We should surrender to become instruments. We can't do it on our own. It's not our personal power, any individual's power that can do it. It's only the mercy of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming down. We have to become via media, transparent media. We have to surrender our false ego to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and act as his instruments, all of us together in different ways. And thus ISKCON will get this special empower, which it already is getting, no doubt. It's already doing that work, and it will continue to grow and do the same as long as we work on this particular aspect of following very strictly in the footsteps of our previous acharyas. By their mercy, we'll get this mercy of Lord Chaitanya, which is going to benedict the whole world. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sya Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Srila Jayapataka ki Jai.
Is there time for questions? Yes.
How should one deal with senior devotees if one sees the devotee has some problem or has some suggestion to make to a senior devotee? Say, to godbrother, senior godbrother. How does one go about making it in an attractive way?
It's a situation that I wouldn't envy. Actually, one should avoid giving advice to senior Vaishnavas as far as possible. But, of course, sometimes if a situation comes up, generally we consider that we're not really in a position to offer someone advice unless we're at an equal or greater level of service. I couldn't offhand just imagine what type of situation might come up where a person was in an inferior position of service and wanted to offer advice, but without going into all these ramifications. If somehow or another one finds oneself in the position of giving some kind of instruction to a senior Vaishnava, then one would have to offer that in the most humble way, and very apologetic that there's like some doubt, that you see something which is agitating your mind or which is making you feel that possibly it's not correct, and so just to alleviate the doubt, as a senior Vaishnava, you're requesting that he would please explain that whether his activity is actually bona fide Krishna consciousness because you're looking up to him, for example, and it's creating a doubt in your mind because from what you've been taught it doesn't seem to be correct. In this way, in some indirect, polite way, one could ask like that, and then it's very hard for a senior Vaishnava to really feel offended. But if you just come and say, well, listen, you appear to be in Maya, you're doing this, of course, you're liable to get smashed. But if you ask in that way, then of course, maintaining your relationship, that you're seeing him as a senior Vaishnava, but you're not seeing his activities to be exemplary of that, and just creating him, then naturally he'll be more than likely to feel, if he is in fact wrongly situated, then he'll feel somewhat responsible to show a good example, and we'll see that you're not saying it out of some kind of enviousness, but that you actually are concerned for your own spiritual life and for his spiritual life as well. It's a type of a sticky situation. Lord Chaitanya would maintain this type of formal relationship with different Vaishnavas. Sometimes, of course, he was ultimately the Supreme Lord, so sometimes he would do other things too, but generally he would try to maintain that type of activity, and in that way sometimes you find with Damodar Pandit, he would say, well, Damodar is my senior, I can't say anything with him, this, that. And of course sometimes indirectly it was like a criticism, because although he was the senior Vaishnava, of course Lord Chaitanya was the guru of everyone, so that requires a lot of intelligence to be able to present something in a palatable way when the subject matter is unpalatable for someone. No one wants to hear about how they're in Maya. Of course, the spiritual master, he directly just tells the disciple in many different ways how they need to be corrected. And when you're dealing with equals or with even superiors, sometimes a junior devotee is put at responsible of senior devotees, but actually the person is more responsible maybe. So it requires a lot of Vaishnava vision to actually be able to see that. The Gaudiya mission, in many ways, they lost that type of perspective. So what happened was, the disciple of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha, he's different than Bhakti Vilas Tirtha, he's Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha, the disciple of Bhakti Vinod, but he could understand that actually my grand disciple, Bhakti Siddhanta, my nephew, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is actually completely empowered, pure devotee. And so he accepted Bhakti Siddhanta either as a sannyas guru or as a shiksha guru, I forget exactly, but he respected him like a spiritual man, even though and maybe some formal thing, he was actually a junior. But because he had exhibited so many exalted Vaishnava qualities, he wanted his spiritual association on that level. This may happen in the future. Of course, now nothing like that has exactly happened, where disciples of the present-day Guru haven't really shown that much advancement yet. But say in subsequent generations, one great acharya may appear as someone's disciple. And then Prabhupada said that the cream will rise to the top, and if they actually become so dynamic in preaching, then even someone may be senior by years or by relationship, but if someone shows such a great quality of devotional service, then that may come, that there'll be a test whether they can recognize a person by quality or by other external aspects. So Bhakti Pradiptirtha, he accepted Bhakti Siddhanta in that way, but after Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada left, actually the most qualified person was Bhakti Pradiptirtha. But then some of the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta were saying, well, he's not technically our godbrother. Even though he was much more senior and much more, so they tried to do a little politics. And so Bhakti Pradiptirtha saw that, well, if it's like that, he just went off and did his own devotional service. Didn't want to get involved in politics. So this happens in Vaishnava, in a more material world, it's Kali Yuga, so we have to be very careful that we avoid this type of mistake. Prabhupada would explain these things to us, that we would not do that. Of course, by having a GBC body, this one way we get protected because we work under committee, not under individual. Because there's always a tendency to resent, one person, and there might be some personality differences. But to work under this committee, this was started by Bhakti Vinod in his Navhata. He had a 10-man panchayat, and then Bhakti Siddhanta said to do it, and they started it, but they didn't really carry it forward. So Prabhupada was always commenting that they never followed Bhakti Siddhanta's order. He never said to have one acharya. He always said to have a governing body commission. You manage everything by a governing body commission. You see. One person may even be misled, or one person may have difficulties like that. The unity of movement has to be preserved by working under the system of governing body commission. So, in that way, in the governing body commission, you have different type of devotees, but they all are there because somehow or another they have done some personal service for Srila Prabhupada. They know Prabhupada's desires, or they've excelled in some preaching field. So in this way they have an understanding, a responsibility for the society. Even there may be other very advanced, even equally advanced devotees outside. But still the principle that they know what Prabhupada wanted, and we follow under this basic system that the previous acharyas wanted, rather than a single acharya system, which is more vulnerable. This helps us to take that humble attitude in a society-wide basis. Hare Krishna.
Srila Jayapataka.